I would have thought you'd have sent your kids up chimneys or stuff to teach them a sense of responsibility. I can't believe you're allowing them to sit and play the PlayStation for 2 days.
What in the hell have I just walked into?
Have you seen him? He's taller than me. He's about 6'3".
I just walked in to hear John's putting the children up chimneys.
That's not euphemism for anything either.
Good morning, Vietnam!
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I feel the need for speed.
Roads? We don't need roads. Snakes. Why'd it have to be snakes?
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Batman.
I am your father.
Anybody order fried sauerkraut? Can you Nazi bastards! Seems this world got you down. You're feeling bad vibrations.
Are you an actor?
No, I'm a stuntman.
Girl, look at me.
So you still with Rick, huh? Still here.
Welcome everybody to the Movie Scramble podcast. I am your master of ceremonies and I'm very, very hungover, so please bear with me. If you don't know my name by now, it's Thomas and I am joined by always the lovely John. How are you?
Oh, fine. I'm very well, thank you.
You sounded very surprised there that I was calling you lovely.
Yes, that and I usually get called upon last, being the elder statesman and everything. But I am very well. I'm very sober. But, you know, looking forward to the weekend and obviously looking forward to our discussion as well.
On tonight's podcast, or this morning's podcast, depends what time you listen to it at, we are going to be reviewing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, if you haven't seen it, don't worry, we're not going to spoil it. We'll tell you some bits about it, but we won't spoil any major plot points. The story is written and directed, of course, by Quentin Tarantino. The film stars Leonardo DiCaprio as washed-up actor Rick Dalton and his faithful stuntman Cliff Booth, played by Brad Pitt. Rick is trying to get his career back on track. He's scared that he's basically done in Hollywood, basically fearful of his career being over. Whereas Cliff just kind of gets on with life. Parallel to his story is Sharon Tate, played by Margot Robbie. Although the film doesn't have much of a plot, it's always kind of leading up to this eventuality. And because of that, it's very, very engaging and at times gripping. I thought this film was absolutely outstanding. For me, it's a potential film of the year. What did you guys think?
Thought that Tarantino was at his best here. For me, it may well be the best Tarantino film that I've seen, which is a bit of a statement.
That is bold.
I've enjoyed a lot of his stuff, but I like the fact that he has now pretty much done every genre movie that he wants to do, and now he's actually just focusing on Hollywood in its entirety, and spending a bit of time looking at the sort of stuff that inspired him back in the day. And obviously 1969 was sort of a pivotal year in terms of obviously the Sharon Tate stuff, the end of the sort of the hippie dream, Altamont. It was also the time when a lot of the new generation of directors come in. So you were talking about a sort of new Hollywood cinema, the end of the studio system and all this sort of stuff as well. And the film really reflects that over the meandering 3 hours. You are right, it's a very loose film. There's not much in the way of plot. It's almost like a day in the life idea, obviously spread over a couple of days, and then there's a gap, and then there's another day, which forms the third act. But I just thought it was magnificent. I loved every single moment of it. I loved the fact that it reflected the fact that the idea that it was such a changing period and there was so much to go, because maybe for probably the first hour and 3/4, 2 hours, you get a constant soundtrack, whether it be the radio, whether it be adverts, music. There's always something on the go, and it just sort of adds to the sort of kinetic energy of the whole piece. I just thought, yep, fantastic movie, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I thought it was like a love letter to all of Tarantino's, favorite styles of cinema or genres of cinema. Clear inspiration from, Sergio Leone, even down to the title, which interestingly, I believe he wanted to call Inglourious Basterds Once Upon a Time in Nazi-occupied France, but for whatever reason that didn't go ahead. And now this is the title of this film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I thought the chemistry, if you will, between Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio was wonderful. I feel like I've kind of not noticed Brad Pitt that much in terms of he's always kind of flown under the radar, and I've never really thought of him as a sort of serious actor in inverted commas, but he was outstanding in this film. Like a whole range of different emotions, and his career is dependent on Leonardo DiCaprio's career, which obviously is kind of gone down the skids, and it's just one of those films where it kind of meanders along nicely, almost like a sort of, horse trotting along in a Western. You're kind of thinking, where is this going? Because at the periphery of all this, there is the sort of shadow of, they're living next door to Sharon Tate, and we all know how that ended. And, Brad Pitt's, sort of, his character Cliff Booth is sort of involved with these kind of hippie girls who are living in a film set. Well, who do we know in history that were a bunch of kind of hippies or family living together in this sort of isolated area? So we all know that it's building towards this point, but you're just never quite sure how it's going to happen, because there is so much focus on Leo DiCaprio's character while he's having a sort of breakdown trying to make his way back into Hollywood. And in typical Tarantino fashion, lots of humour, lots of sort of nods to different styles of cinema, and lots of nods to his own films as well. I'm pretty sure one of the film posters that flashed up at one point said the director was Antonio Margheriti, which of course was Eli Roth's fake Italian name in Inglourious Basterds as well. I just loved it. There was just so much in it. It's so rich with content that you could probably watch it 5 or 6 times and find something else to love about it every time.
Yeah, and as you say as well, regarding that type idea, it's kind of like moseying on.
Mm-hmm.
You've got DiCaprio, his character Rick Dalton, who's known for kind of TV cowboy in the 50s, and now he's kind of getting to the kind of twilight of his career. He's a bit kind of feeling like he's washed up. He's a has-been, gets another chance, but he's playing a cowboy again, albeit in a different kind of Western.
Mm-hmm.
And it does really mirror the character's career. He is the kind of gunslinger going out for like one last ride type thing,
Yeah, that's a really beautiful way of putting it, actually.
Yeah, I mean, and the acting in the film is DiCaprio is absolutely incredible, as he usually is. But Tarantino gets a certain kind of vibe off him. It eventually gets a certain type of emotion for DiCaprio. Got it from him in Django Unchained. Very different role. And here again, he kind of taps into something that we don't see any other director tap into. And Scorsese and DiCaprio obviously have a very close relationship in terms of their movies. Tarantino just, as a director, has the ability to just dig deep into an actor and get something we don't usually see. And mentioning kind of Brad Pitt, as you say, he's kind of disappeared from Hollywood and big movies and stuff like that. For me, this was his best performance since Fight Club.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, in saying that, I really enjoyed him in Inglourious Basterds as well.
I did as well, but there was something about him in that just kind of, the point of Brad Pitt being in it was, it's Brad Pitt in a Tarantino film. Whereas this time it was like, no, this is a different performance. This is something else. It's funny because we're sitting watching it and it's like, Brad Pitt's looking about old, eh? Oh, he's not a young man anymore. Then he took his top off. I'm like, oh, fuck off.
I was just about to say that. See, when he took his shirt off, people actually gasped in the cinema. I think there was this sort of expectation that there's no way a 55-year-old or whatever he is, Brad Pitt, could have this absolutely sun-kissed pecs and rippling muscles. Then the shirt came off and it was like, he looks better than most of the 20-year-olds sauntering in the cinema. So
do you know what really upset me? I think I might have mentioned this, but Brad Pitt was younger in Fight Club than I am now, and that really bothers me. I don't know why.
Are you not in peak physical condition?
Yeah, that's a problem.
This is it. This is the peak.
But no, I mean, and I said DiCaprio and Brad Pitt in that, it's two of the best performances I may have actually seen them in general.
Just the chemistry between them was really, really natural and fun, and there was lots of humour and actual a lot of kind of genuine emotion between them as well. Two people who as far as their characters are concerned. They've sort of gone through their entire careers together. Brad Pitt playing the slightly sort of, he is quite good at playing the dumb fuck at times, and that kind of was how his character was. Whereas obviously DiCaprio's character was just so focused on, career and wanting to be, what he was at his peak. But no, the chemistry between them was great. You genuinely did believe that they'd spent their entire careers together.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously you've got Margot Robbie as Sharon Tate. And then there was some kind of controversy, manufactured controversy, the fact that our character didn't have many lines in the film.
Her character's on the periphery, though. It's literally just it's sheer coincidence that her character moves in next door to Rick Dalton. That's my answer to that. But as you say, I think the controversy was manufactured.
Yeah, but it's not just that as well. A lot of the scenes she's in the scenes herself.
Mm-hmm.
She's supposed to be walking down the street talking to herself. And Tarantino really does objectify her in a way that is done, I felt, with a kind of affection.
Yeah, she's
sexualized.
No, she's like goddess-like she's shot in this. She's always shot in kind of bright sunlight, so there is this sort of angelic glow about her hair and her skin and what she's wearing. She's absolutely goddess-like. This is very much a tribute to her, not sort of cashing in on what happened for the sake of making a film. She is, Margot Robbie obviously is gorgeous, but the way he shoots her and the lighting and just the way her hair's flowing and everything, she's just goddess like. So I thought it was a really nice kind of portrayal.
Yeah.
Well, what I took from that was the fact that she came across being a bit like almost like a Disney princess, and that kind of played into the whole Once Upon a Time aspect. It was almost like a fairy tale, as you're saying, she floats everywhere and she's always happy and contented, and she takes a lot of pleasure from the fact it's just seeing herself on the screen and just enjoying it, which obviously mirrored Rick Dalton's career, which wasn't something that people would sort of go and just enjoy for the sake of it. He wouldn't go and watch one of his own films and enjoy it in the way that she did, because of the kind of at opposite ends of the spectrum. Now he's almost on the way down, while she's having an almost effortless rise. Obviously, it's just small parts and things like that at the moment, but it's a career that's got potential. Whereas you've got the likes of DiCaprio playing a guy who, not quite on the skids, but he's not getting the parts. He's villain of the week, I think, in a lot of things, which it's a bit of a shame for him and everything. And you do actually feel for him. I think, like you mentioned earlier, the performance that DiCaprio gave, it seems to be that what he's done here is he's shown a certain amount of vulnerability. When he speaks at first, in the very first scene, where you see Rick Dalton, he's sitting down having the meeting, the agent who's trying to get him into different pictures, and he's stuttering and he's stumbling, and he's not the performer that you see on screen. He's more of a real person. He's got vulnerabilities. He's very unsure of himself. He's actually quite meek as well, and that doesn't come across as being sort of a false sort of Hollywood meekness. Oh, I just do what I can. He actually seems very nervous, and that's what kind of made the performance for me. But that performance itself was relatively large in terms of its scope, which meant that Brad Pitt, with his easygoing manner and everything, was a wee bit to the side. So it looked as if the DiCaprio performance was the sort of major one from the film, and initially you're thinking that, but the more you think about it, you're thinking, yeah, Brad Pitt did actually he contributed a whole lot to that the buddy relationship and the picture in general. Yeah, superb.
Yeah, you basically got kind of like Brad Pitt's character as a stuntman, but he's more than a stuntman to Rick. He is clearly his closest friend and his personal assistant, his driver. He can't really get on in life without him. He owes so much to him, to the sense that he's like a crutch in a way, but it's very affectionate. There's like...
Yeah, there's no resentment, because like obviously they show you, Rick Dalton's house, and it's, your typical sort of, late 60s Hollywood Hills house, and then they focus on Cliff going home one night and he's living in some manky ass trailer in the middle of nowhere, and there's dog food like ingrained on the floor, and he's probably sleeping on his sofa and stuff like that. But there's no hint that there's any bitterness in the relationship between them. It's just like, yeah, he's got this trajectory, and as a result he has this house and whatever, and he was quite comfortable with where he was in life, I think, which was quite an interesting dynamic, because there was never any sense that they had anything other than sort of good feeling towards each other.
Yeah, it's got that kind of cautionary tale of fame as well, when you've got like the well-known actor in Rick Dalton compared to the stuntman, the kind of unsung hero of film, and Cliff. But Cliff seems quite happy in his life. Lives in the trailer, as you said, just having his dog. It's quite a humble lifestyle. But even about these letters to Rick, I enjoy watching your house for you. I enjoy doing stuff for you. Whereas Rick is always chasing that fame, chasing that validation and that self-worth. Cliff doesn't need it. He kind of looks back, and he looks back in his kind of memories and reminisces of parts of the film, even stuff he's done that's kind of messed up. It does so with a kind of nostalgic affection.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, supposedly it wasn't really explored in the film, but apparently he came from a sort of a combat background, and that's where he learned a lot of his skills and a lot of his fighting. So with him actually being a Hollywood stuntman, it's like almost like it's just a very contented existence for him. It's something that he doesn't need anything else. He's been through a hell of a lot of life experiences, and he's just enjoying what he's doing just now as a 50-year-old man with impeccable pecs.
It's interesting as well, because there's a few comments I've been seeing in reviews where people think it's been Tarantino's most self-indulgent film. I never thought this film was self-indulgent. I thought it was very unapologetically Tarantino. I think like Inglourious Basterds, Death Proof, Hateful Eight, they were self-indulgent at points. Tarantino is known for this. He's guilty of doing it. I didn't get that here. I didn't think it was.
No, I thought this was a genuine, like, just sort of, overview. Like, look at this era of cinema. Look what they were doing. Look at the types of stock characters they had. Look at the things they had on TV. Look at the lifestyle these people led. Look at the struggles of this guy trying to get his career off the ground. I thought it was a very sort of generous overview of that era and the sort of socio-political context, obviously kind of, as I say, on the periphery. But to me, yeah, it felt like a sort of love letter to that time and that type of cinema. And I think he was just wanting to share his enjoyment of that particular genre or whatever with maybe, younger audiences, or maybe audiences who haven't seen that type of film in a wee while. I don't think it's self-indulgent at all.
No, I mean, it's a love letter to that golden age of Hollywood. And it's a glorification of Sharon Tate. You can tell that Tarantino is absolutely in love with her. The way he kind of frames the shots of Margot Robbie, tracks the camera, and that he wants you to fall in love with this character, who just, as you said, floats through the entire film.
Kind of snoring, which everyone kind of thinks is quite endearing because she's so beautiful, but she was pig ugly. But she's lying in bed, looking like a Bond girl. Her skin is, beautifully sun-kissed, and the sheet just sort of barely covers her. And there's no point to that scene because she literally is just sleeping, and it doesn't lead anywhere or whatever. But it's just, showcasing her and her beauty, and he's, very clearly in love with her, or the idea of her. Because she was sort of known for playing a certain type of character as well. But it very much was, sort of, appreciating her. I never felt it was disrespectful or in any way sort of abusive towards her memory. I thought it was, if you're, as portrayals go, you can ask for much better.
Yeah, it's almost like kind of like showing like Hollywood's innocence before it was lost. Yeah,
she's like the last piece, isn't she, before the free love movement came to an end. America was involved in more and more wars abroad. She is that sort of last piece of the sort of the golden age, isn't she?
He did have his usual obsession with feet, though, which was
There's a lot of feet in this. So much feet
as well. I suppose it's part of the sandal wearing hippies kind of idea as well.
I wish they were wearing sandals. That was the issue.
Yeah, but no, I would thoroughly recommend this film to anybody, Tarantino fan or not. Yeah, it's definitely one to see.
Yeah, and it's that way, as we mentioned earlier, there's not much in the way of a kind of typical standard plot, but it's just built on themes, and these
Mhm.
themes build and build and build. Yeah, it's a recommend from me as well.
Yeah, and for me, absolutely.
Last night we watched a Rick Dalton double feature. All the shooting. I love that stuff, you know, the killing.
A lot of killing.
We had a discussion the other day, and we're thinking about how do we link this in, and we could talk about our favourite Tarantino films, favourite scenes, but we thought the best way to kind of just deal with this would be to look at our top 3 Tarantino moments.
I think this is one of my favourite sort of scenes or movie moments, like, of all time. I've seen this film more times than I actually care to count. It's the opening scene from Inglourious Basterds, where Colonel Hans Landa, played by Christoph Waltz, turns up at the French farm of Monsieur Le Petit, and basically there's one of the most intense conversations I think I've ever witnessed. Obviously, as I said earlier, the film starts off with this, split into chapters, and this is chapter 1, which is Once Upon a Time in Nazi-occupied France. And as the SS drive up to this farm, there's this sort of flamenco version of Für Elise going on in the background. And Christoph Waltz, who, where has he been all my life? He just effortlessly swaps between so many languages during this film. And interestingly, Tarantino said that once he'd written the part of Hans Landa, he thought it was unplayable because there was going to be a lot of multilingual requirements. But Christoph Waltz is just incredible. So he goes into the farm, and there's a lot of posturing and sort of peacocking between himself and Monsieur Le Petit, and they're sitting at the table in the kitchen. Hans Landa whips out this ridiculous oversized pipe as if to emphasise the pissing contest element of this. And he speaks in French, they chat away, and then he just goes, I'm going to swap into English. And he slowly sort of really teases out this metaphor of a rat being in your house. And the worst part is that as he goes along with, you wouldn't welcome a rat into your house, they're known to spread disease, blah, blah, blah. You're actually sitting there going, no, you wouldn't let a rat into your house, that's right. And then you're like, no, I can't agree with him because, he's sitting there with the skull and crossbones and the stripes on his shoulders and all the rest of it, cap peaked at a jaunty angle. But he's so mesmerising as a character. But straight away, the uniform is the visual sort of signifier that you're not supposed to be on side with this man. But he is so rich and charismatic, and there's so many layers there already, established by, as I say, fantastic Christoph Waltz. And there's this incredibly tense standoff where the actor playing Monsieur Le Petit is absolutely dripping in sweat, like his shirt is soaked through, because he's obviously hiding Jews under the floorboard, and that's what Hans Landa is there to establish, because he is the Jew hunter. And the conversation goes on, they swap back and forward from French to English before obviously it erupts into violence. But as openings go as a film, my God, I was rooted to the seat. It was incredible. So that is my top pick, and honestly, it could be one of my favourite films of all time. I absolutely love it. You can practically smell the sweat in that scene. It's so intense. I loved it.
My first pick is the House of Blue Leaves scene from Kill Bill Volume 1. This the House of Blue Leaves is the sort of headquarter for the Crazy 88, and Ora Nishi, the leader of them. And what we have is the bride turns up in order to confront her. It's all a very convoluted story, let's face it. It's basically a two-movie revenge flick. So she turns up, and after a bit of verbal play, they basically start to fight. Now, she doesn't just fight one, she fights everybody that's there, and then she fights all the reinforcements that come in as well. It is a beautifully pieced, beautifully choreographed piece of work, I should say. It's just fantastic, and when you think it can't get any better, she plucks out a guy's eye and it goes into black and white, and it just goes mental from there. Just goes absolutely off the chart. It really helped the fact it went into black and white as well, because it made such a difference that you weren't seeing all the red fake blood splattering everywhere. It actually gave it an extra sense of tension, and I just thought it was a magnificent piece of work. And it's obviously the centerpiece of the first volume. It works so well, and it was good. Like as you were talking about Inglourious Bastards there, the scene was right at the very start, and the rest of the film had trouble living up to it. Whereas this one is it's about 2/3 of the way into the film, and it really works because there's a whole build up to that. You've got to know a lot of the characters, you know the dynamic between them as well, and because of that, it plays out brilliantly. And of course, it ends with sort of a rooftop battle as well, and there's the snowy landscape and everything, and the beautiful panpipe music playing and all that, which is just amazing. I don't know, something about that music, it reminds me of Ski Sunday and things like that, for all these skiing programs that used to be on, and that music, all the panpipe stuff, just reminds me of that for some bizarre reason. It'll be my therapist and I will get to that at some point, but probably not for the next couple of weeks. So yeah, that's my first choice.
Referring to the black and white bit, you're right, it really does kind of add this kind of artistic tint to it. But the reason you probably know there's some black and white is just to get around the censor.
Yes. Yeah, there was a Japanese version of Kill Bill Volume 1 where it was all in colour for the whole scene, and it doesn't have the same impact.
Sorry, what do you mean for the censor?
Basically, the censors wouldn't have given it an R rating if there was that much blood in the film. Yeah, but by putting it in black and white, it doesn't count.
I mean, we all still know it's blood, right? So
Yeah. It was the same from Dusk Till Dawn. The reason the vampires' blood is green is just around the censor.
Yeah, no, I kind of figured that. I didn't realize that was. I mean, I thought because from Dusk Till Dawn was kind of older, maybe, but
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous.
Okay.
It's ridiculous.
Sorry, John, are you drinking milk?
Yes.
Give them strong bones.
That's why you're so dashing and your hair's so thick, because you just drink milk out the carton.
Yeah, I'm just thick. Everything, not just my hair.
I'm loving this. Is this like now that I can see you now because you finally appeared in my suite, is this like a muscle fit sweater you've got on as well? What is going on?
I'm wearing a black t-shirt, for fuck's sake. Muscle fit.
Brad Pitt in a minute and just take it off.
No, I don't want you don't want the podcast to be ending with the sound of retching.
You're so hard on yourself.
Oh way.
I knew somebody would get a penis joke in eventually.
I'm going to go a bit left field of this one and pick True Romance.
Great
because an original script by Quentin Tarantino. It was actually, I believe, his first script. He wrote that in Reservoir Dogs, but he couldn't direct both of them because he was new to the business. He gave both scripts to Tony Scott and said, pick one. Tony Scott picked True Romance. Tarantino, as you know, directed Reservoir Dogs, and the rest is history. I love this film. I think it's great. It tells the story Clarence Worley, played by Christian Slater, who falls in love with a call girl, Patricia Arquette, the name of Alabama. Very call girl name. They fall in love and will try to get her out of her quote-unquote contract with her pimp. He ends up accidentally stealing money from the mob. This leads up to, in my opinion, which is one of the greatest scenes ever in cinema, with Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper. Christopher Walken plays the gangster who's representing the mob boss who Christian Slater has stolen from. Dennis Hopper is Christian's old dad, who's just basically a retired cop, living his wee trailer with his dog. I don't know what Tarantino's got with people living in trailers with dogs, but it seems to like this theme.
Yeah.
And basically, it's just the two of them trying their best to kind of like outact each other in a really respectful, like dueling kind of way. And the script, to be honest, is dated a little. There's a lot of racial language in it, and it does feel a little kind of cringy and a bit kind of uncomfortable. The scene itself, though, and the dialogue in general, and the act is just absolutely incredible. You know it's only going to end one way. It can. However, you just can't take your eyes off of it. And what are you laughing at?
No, nothing. No, I'm just agreeing with you.
Oh, I thought you were going to make a dick joke or something there. And I was trying my best to think what I said.
I didn't say anything, penis.
Kind of hard to take my eyes off it. Keep sticking.
John's like, yeah, that's what my wife says.
Yeah, I mean, just the scene just from... I mean, Christopher Walken is only in this film for one scene and he steals the entire film.
Oh, I know, I love Christopher Walken.
You know, and it's like that kind of opening bit he says when, like, Dennis Hopper's like, who are you? And he's like, I'm the Antichrist. And when you meet Seton Peter at the gates of heaven, you'll tell him you've never seen the personification of true evil, like the man who put you there type thing, and you're just like, what the hell kind of opening line is that?
It's a line that only Christopher Walken could get away with.
If Christopher Walken's planning interrogating me, and that's his opening line, I'm telling him anything. Dennis Hopper is wanting to protect his son, and he's just basically, he knows how this is going to end as well, so he starts trying to just kind of like mess with his head a little. And the entire scene, oh, it's just absolutely outstanding. It's incredible. It's fantastic. Any superlative you want to use doesn't do it justice. Just watch it for this bit alone. And it features a young James Gandolfini.
Yep. When he was
Excellent
20.
film. Great cast. You've got Brad Pitt's also in this. In a cameo.
Is he?
Yeah. Plays Floyd, the stoner who kind of hangs up the couch.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that now.
Val Kilmer's also in it as Elvis, but Elvis's estate wouldn't give Tony Scott any permission to use like Elvis at all. So you always only see him like bloody out of focus shots, and in the credits he's even called Mentor. He's not called Elvis.
Val Kilmer spent the rest of his career looking blurry and out of shot ever since, really, hasn't he?
That is so depressing. Do you know, Val Kilmer is one of my first crushes. I remember going to see Batman and just thinking, oh my god, he is the best thing to ever happen to cinema. And now look at him.
I know.
I think he'll sort himself out for Top Gun 2.
Yeah, I don't know if I see him playing volleyball on the beach.
It kind of feels like Tom Cruise maybe, I don't know, kissed him at one point and sucked all the youth out of him. And that's what happened.
That's what...
Disclaimer, I'm not saying that Tom Cruise is gay.
No, I thought you were alluding to the fact he's some kind of vampire.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
You know, Tom Cruise basically just kind of like, I keep my youthful looks by sucking the life out of other actors. That's why he's always casting himself against younger female leads.
That's it. He'll be like, get a kissing scene in there, get a kissing scene in there.
Oh, maybe we should pick... Oh, and actually another little bit about that.
Sure.
Quentin Tarantino said that scene was the best thing he had ever written up until the opening of Inglourious Basterds.
Yes.
Nice wee bit of linkage for you.
Yeah,
you know,
that's lovely.
do a research in this podcast. Don't let anybody tell you different in film.
I know it might sound like we're winging it, but we actually know what we're talking about. Something. Mostly it's about
Especially
dick,
John.
in fairness.
John has his notes written in that carton of milk.
Sorry, it's just I know it's a weird thing to observe. I've just never. It's been ages since I've seen somebody drink directly from a carton.
No, I noticed it as well. The first time I picked it up, I thought, is he drinking a carton of milk?
I don't know why it's so funny.
I don't know why either. You know?
I'm kind of struggling to think why.
It's like you probably have a list on your fridge that's like, got to get some vitamin C and calcium. Better drink some milk. Oh god. Right. Second pick for me. Serious face on. Stop laughing at John drinking milk. Is probably one of the most, I would say, iconic scenes in cinema. Like, it's a cult classic. It's the dance scene in Pulp Fiction. And what I love about this is, at first, when Uma Thurman's character says, you know, you promised you would take me out and we could do whatever I want and I want to dance and I want to win, John Travolta genuinely does look scared. Like, he does not want to participate in this. And obviously it has the sort of famous piece of music over it, You Never Can Tell, by Chuck Berry, I think. And the dancing's amazing. Like, obviously they just start off kind of shuffling or whatever, but then John Travolta starts pointing the toes and there's like a lot of swimming action going on and, you know, peace signs and all that. And it's a really bizarre scene in the context of that film, which is obviously kind of super violent and about, you know, it's not it's not a romantic film, it's not a comedy, and it's certainly not about like, you know, a night out. I love it. There's something sort of deeply captivating about it, and it does kind of start off, I think, with John Travolta looking a little bit unsure of himself, but you know, even though he had obviously been dancing in like Grease and Saturday Night Fever, but the more he gets into it and gets into the swing of things, it's just like these are just two people having a really good time despite the sort of circumstances, whatever going on around them, and it's something that's kind of copied a lot, you know, for Halloween costumes or sort of homages to that particular film, but it's definitely a sort of cult classic, the film itself, and that scene is definitely a standout within the rest of the film. And I think, is that Uma Thurman's first film with Quentin Tarantino? Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. And she's obviously incredible in it. And I think that's probably the last decent film I've seen John Travolta in as well. So I just like it. It's just odd in the middle of that film, but there's something about it that just makes me laugh and makes me actually want to get up and join in.
How dare you disrespect Face Off?
Oh my God, we were talking about this in work the other day. I found these Nick Cage scatter cushions, right? And it's like glitter sequins or whatever, and then you rub the sequins up and underneath there's just Nick Cage staring at you. It's like, who would want this for their bed or their couch? Nuts.
Would. Although I thought you were going to say you'd rub the sequins and John Travolta's face appeared. I'm like, that's absolute genius.
That would have been more clever. We should trademark that now.
For mine, I'm going to choose a scene from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's been described as the actor prepares scene. Basically, the background to it is Rick Dalton is on a pilot for a new Western called Lancer, where, again, he's playing the bad guy who's destined to die in the third act. He's turned up at set drunk or hungover, and he's just not totally with it. He has done his preparation, as we had seen earlier on, and he had a bit of a mixed morning on set. He forgot a couple of lines and caused a few problems for them. So after that, he goes back to his trailer, basically threatens himself with death. He threatens to blow his own brains out. You know, he's speaking to himself in the mirror and he says, if you don't get this right, I'm going to blow your brains out tonight, which is actually a really funny bit. From there, because it's lunchtime and because he's been made up as the bad guy with his Zapata moustache and everything, he can't really eat lunch, so he sits down to read his book, which is one of these pulp Western books, and he's sitting beside this little 11-year-old girl. And they strike up a conversation, and she starts asking him about, what are you reading? You know, she's reading a biography of Walt Disney, and it's this big, massive book, and he's reading this just pulp novel, one of these sort of dime store novels that you get. And she says, what's that about? And he starts describing the book, and he's talking about how it's a rodeo rider who was the top of his game and everything was going well, and then he ended up with spinal injuries and he's struggling. And about halfway through the description of this, he starts to realize that this is his life. This is what he has become. It's actually mirroring him, and he starts to well up and he starts to cry, and you're going, oh my God, and he's starting bubbling in front of this 11-year-old girl, and it's heartbreaking, because you know that he can do it. You know that he is like a consummate actor, but through the choices he's made over the past decade, the fact that he was a lead in a TV show and he just decided, I want to be an actor now. I want to be a proper actor, proper film actor. So he chucked it after 2 seasons, or he made the third season hell for everybody. And because of that, this is the situation he finds himself in a decade later. And it's just the realization that his life has become a wee bit of a joke. And the way that DiCaprio plays that scene is just absolutely amazing. He's sitting there totally decked out as a bad guy, as I say, with the long hair and the wide-brimmed hat, and he's just sitting there bubbling, and this 11-year-old girl starts comforting him. It's just absolutely amazing. I like the fact that there's no camera. You don't actually see the setup with the crew and everything when they're filming this. It is actually as if they're filming it for real. You know, it's like an actual scene that you're seeing. So you're not seeing like any of the technicians in the background or anything like that. So it adds to the sort of drama of the moment while they're doing that. And you only really notice it when the camera actually pans round behind the Timothy Oliphant character, and he fluffs a line, and it's then so all right, stop, and reset, and the camera gets pushed back and all that. It's very well done. And of course, it was kind of a toss up between that scene and the scene after, because the scene
Sexy
after
Hamlet.
yes, yeah. Oh,
That made me absolutely piss myself. He's sitting there going, give me, what was it, evil Hamlet, give me sexy Hamlet, keep it going. DiCaprio's sitting in the chair, and you can see the strain on his face, like struggling to portray whatever emotion, whatever the fuck sexy Hamlet means. He's just sitting there like straining, the vein popping out of his head. Yeah, no, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Good choice, John.
Very good
Thank you.
choice. Yeah, I'm going to go back to Kill Bill. O-Ren Ishii's backstory, which is done in glorious Japanese anime.
nice.
This scene took me entirely by surprise when I was watching Kill Bill. Sitting in the cinema, really enjoying it. And, getting into backstories for all the different villains and stuff that the bride's going through a list to try and kill. And we get to O-Ren Ishii, and her backstory's told in anime. And it just threw me off guard. And for the next few minutes, I was just so invested in this that I forgot I was watching a live action film. And this was just a scene. It's so well directed. It's so beautifully animated. It was did by the production company, Production IG. And they were the studio behind Ghost in the Shell. Very iconic anime, which Tarantino was a big fan of. And animation producer Katsuji Morishita said apparently there was 4 sequences in this, and it took him a whole year in this production. But they were saying if they actually did that in a live action, the blood alone would have been 7 figures. So people were kind of like, why did they have this scene in anime? Why it does, and the interesting thing about it doesn't jar from the rest of the film. It just seamlessly goes into it, and you get so invested in it, and it cuts back to Uma Thurman's character, the bride, try to work with her big toe.
Again.
I totally got lost. I was totally lost in that I could have easily just watched that as a film. Absolutely amazing.
I think that's the thing with Tarantino. He seems to get away with, like, what I would almost call sketches. Like, you don't really go in expecting just one plot to go from A to B. You do kind of expect curveballs and different almost like kind of different genres sort of merged into one. I think you're sort of willing to suspend your disbelief kind of more with him than sort of any other director.
Yeah, because he can pull it off.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's always very stylish. Yeah.
Yeah, I say just that scene for me is one of the greatest scenes in any films, and it's. I was going to pick The House of the Blue Leaves, John, because that was the first thing I thought of when I thought of Kill Bill, and then that just popped out in my head, and I went, no, that made me want to go back. That makes me want to go back and watch the film alone just to see that scene.
Yep, absolutely.
And the beautiful thing about it as well, you could watch it just, you could look up on YouTube, skip to it on your DVD, and just watch it on its own.
Mm-hmm.
It's an isolated story.
Yeah, well, that's what Mary was saying about a lot of Tarantino's work. You could watch just scenes or elements of films quite easily without having to watch anything. They're almost like short films within a sort of bigger narrative, but they can be totally standalone, which really works for me anyway.
So my last pick is not a particularly serious one, but every time I think of this scene, it just makes me gut myself. And it's the clan gathering from Django Unchained when they're planning their raid. So obviously, the film itself is quite tense. There's a lot of racist language. And it's just one of those films again where I feel like you can almost like smell the sweat. What is it about Southern films? It's all, you can really sort of taste the chewing tobacco. But this scene just makes me gut myself because, here's all these clan members or whatever on their horses. They've got their sort of, burning rags at the side, and they're planning this big raid, and they're talking about, killing people and what they go into description about what they're going to do to these specific people. And then about halfway through, they try to pull their hoods over their heads, and they're like, oh, I can't see. And the eye holes are sitting like sort of down where their mouths are. And they're like, well, who gave us these? And somebody's wife is getting the blame for it. And, you know, it's like, well, we can't go on this raid now because nobody can see. And then somebody shouts, but the horses can see, and the horses are what's leading us. It's like, well, I'm not going into this raid if I can't see. And then it's like, well, do we do hoods on or hoods off? And it's like, the whole point is we have to have our hoods on. That's the intimidation. And then they're like, no, we can just go with hoods off. And then there's all these, you know, clan members that are pulling these ridiculous hoods over their heads with eye holes that are like, you know, one is actually maybe at their eye, but the other one's at their lips. And whoever, I can't remember the character's name, but whoever the guy is whose wife has made it was like, well, fuck all of y'all, and next time you can bring your own pillowcases. And he just sort of saunters off on his horse. And it's, do you know what? It's not even the best scene in that film, but it just makes me laugh so much. And it's kind of what Spike Lee did in Black Klansman to a certain extent, is sort of pointing out the sort of ridiculousness of this organisation, or whatever you want to call it, racial hate group. And that's where Tarantino sort of gets his fun in, I think, in that film. It's just this, you know, absolutely ridiculous. We've put our holes in the wrong places in the pillowcases, and it's just making, not light of the situation, but very much sort of taking the piss out of the people who hold these particular beliefs. It's not particularly serious, it's not going to win any awards, but it just makes me laugh.
It's like, no, they're very evil men, but look at the state of them.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
absolutely
definitely.
ridiculous. When you think about it, you know, that's absolutely ridiculous, and they should be laughed at, they should be mocked.
But as I say, it's just the sort of the tin living it for me is when the guy rides off and he's like, you know, next time me and my wife will just make our own, or whatever. It's so ridiculous, and it's inviting you to laugh at these people, but not to think, oh, they're just harmless. Look at them; they can't even get the pillowcases right. It's, you know, look at these people. You know, these are the people that want to be in charge of things, sort of thing. You should be worried.
I was flying to New York on holiday, and
No brag, but okay.
yeah, you know, and you had your kind of like in-flight films and things like that. And I can't remember what I watched. I think I watched Gangster Squad heading over. But the guy in front of me put on Django Unchained as the plane was about to land. I'm like, what is he hoping to see? It's like, how? I mean, it's like quite a long film, mate. I don't think you're going to get this in.
You've had lots of time to watch it up until now.
I remember looking over my seat and the credits popping up. I'm like, oh man.
My next pick is from Pulp Fiction. It's the Call the Wolf scene. Basically, Vincent and Jules are in a car. They accidentally blow the head off of a guy who's sitting in the back seat of the car. And they
I'm laughing, sorry.
I know. Well, that is quite funny, obviously.
Yeah.
And they head to Jimmy's house, who Jimmy is a friend of Jules, and they turn up at his doorstep about 8 o'clock in the morning, covered with blood and brains and a dead body in the back of the car. And Jimmy is not best pleased to see them, despite the fact that he's given them some of the gourmet coffee, not the rubbish stuff that they kind of expected. So they call the Wolf. Now, the Wolf is a fixer. He's played by Harvey Keitel. He's the guy that you call when you want something done and you want something done quickly. So the Wolf turns up and basically sets everything right. It directs Jules and Vincent to do the cleanup while talking Jimmy down, because Jimmy's wife Bonnie is just about to appear back from doing a night shift at the hospital. And basically, in double quick time, he gets everything sorted, and he looks effortlessly cool at the same time, because he turns up in a dinner suit with a bow tie on, as if he's just stepped out from like a christening or something. And you've got to wonder,
what kind of christenings do you go to?
Yeah, at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's one of these scenes. It's as you say, it's not the best scene in Pulp Fiction, but it's a funny scene, and it just showed off Harvey Keitel. It's been kind of diminished a wee bit in the fact that he's done about 1,000,001 adverts for Direct Line Insurance with pretty much the same character, but it doesn't take away from the original at all. I still think it's one of the standout scenes from that movie.
Yeah, he's so classy, even though what he's doing is like the dirty work. He's super classy as he does it.
Unflappable, yeah.
It's great, but it's totally ruined for me with those Direct Line adverts.
I know, almost as bad as Al Pacino's Dunkin' Donuts adverts. I must admit, when he showed up in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, my first thought was, how the fuck did you get this gig? Because you are literally selling donuts now, pal.
Interesting enough, a wee bit of trivia. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Do you know Charles Manson once approached Steve McQueen with a script? Basically, after an altercation, McQueen broke his nose.
Good for Steve McQueen.
Yeah, at the beginning, that's maybe Charles Manson's Hitler moment. You know, to kind of push him over the edge. Like, we don't like your paintings. Oh well, what do you next? What's my backup plan?
Yeah, because when Manson turns up at the house the first time, he's asking for Dennis. And Dennis is actually Dennis Wilson from the Beach Boys, because he was hanging about with him and he wanted him to help with his music career as well.
Yeah.
So it all kind of ties in.
So are we saying that, a sort of failed artist, obviously Hitler couldn't paint and Manson could neither write nor sing, that we should be worried about these guys because they're going to start...
I'm telling you, this book I'm publishing better do well, because...
That's why I was alluding to.
Buy my book or else.
Simi,
another wee humble brag there from Simi, yeah.
I know.
By the way, I wrote a book, but I don't know how good it's going to be.
Sure. While I was on a flight to New York, visiting my agent, I just jotted out a novel. Sure, yeah.
You need to excuse me, his diamond shoes are getting a bit tight. Yeah, I'm not even really going to say too much about my final scene because there isn't really much to say about it apart from it's one of the most iconic and legendary scenes in cinema. The opening credit sequence, or it's not the opening scene of Reservoir Dogs. The opening scene is always them sitting in the diner, the infamous Mr. Pink and the tipping conversation. But after that, we just basically have them all walking down the streets. Immaculate black and suits with a kind of white shirt and the black tie, the shades on, little green bag playing, slow motion. It's just brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and it's just so effortlessly cool. It's been for Tarantino, who does have the reputation for copying a lot of stuff, and he does copy a lot of stuff for Reservoir Dogs. That's fair enough. This scene is been tried so many times since, and this is one of the most coolest scenes ever for me. Just the way they walk, the music works. Who didn't have a poster of that shot on the wall at some point? I have a framed picture of it. I'm looking at it just now. It's just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And
we try to look that cool in our scramble nights out, but obviously.
Yeah, we do look that cool in our heads, to be fair. That's how we look in our minds.
How would Tarantino film us? There's at least a foot between me and you, Simi, and then probably another foot between you and John. He'd have to pan up.
It was just Russian dolls, basically.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a statement, really, wasn't it? That the opening titles was like, "I've arrived." Take notice of me, because, say, the opening scene was good, but it wasn't anything that kind of made that sort of statement. But then when you see them walking, you think, all right.
Yeah, the credit sequence is definitely, it's more to do with Tarantino as opposed to the characters. I think that was him sort of saying, this is me and this is my sort of style of cinema, kind of that little bit of swag about it. And I know he probably does get a bit of a bum rap for copying, but I genuinely think he just loves cinema so much that everything he does is in some way a homage or whatever. I don't ever think of it as outright copying.
Yeah,
it's because he has his own style.
He's not plagiarizing to try and copy something and pass it off on his own. He's basically saying, I love this and I want to show you. You haven't seen this film that I love, so I'm going to show you my love for it. We also took to social media and asked you about your top three movie scramble scenes. Yes, what's your top three movie scramble moments?
John getting his kit off.
This is basically where the ego has landed.
Do you want to start that again, Simi?
No, podcasts are no longer going to be about movies. They're going to be about us. So, yeah, that's just how we're going to roll from now on. But we did ask you your top three Quentin Tarantino moments as we shared ours. We had a couple of responses from Twitter. At Rufio, as in Rufio from Hook, he said Reservoir Dogs with no second thought. Even 25 years plus from its release, I instantly think of it. I instantly think of it when I hear a song from the soundtrack. Amazing movie. We also have Bob Steele at Bob Steele 55. All three of his favourite Tarantino moments are from the same film, Pulp Fiction. Number 1, Jules, we will strike down upon thee with Fury's vengeance speech. And fair enough, need to pick that. That's a very, very good scene. He also had the entire Winston Wolfe scene, the same as you, John. And possibly his favourite quote in film history from Jules, "This morning airs some chilly shit." Can't really argue with that.
No.
Yes, thanks for your suggestions. I do appreciate the fact that I sent those messages out about 2 minutes before the podcast started. So if you are sending them in after this point in time, it's not getting read out. Sorry.
Like we said earlier, winging it.
It's how we roll. I think that wraps up our Tarantino loving. For a guy that, let's be honest, does get a bit of a bad rap these days in these kind of more modern times, and I'm not saying all of it's not necessarily unjustified, he's still an absolutely brilliant director, and that's not going to change.
I think a guy just likes feet. Just leave him alone.
He does. Like, I did hear a funny thing the other day, actually. I was listening to a movie podcast. Sorry, guys, I was cheating on you. And talking about From Dusk Till Dawn, and I was saying how it's funny when you see Tarantino in the vampire makeup.
Mm-hmm.
He looks how Tarantino looks now.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm Sharon Tate. I'm in the movie.
You're in this?
That's me. I play Miss Carlson, the klutz.
So, what's in the news? What's happening these days?
Well, there's been sort of 2 big announcements this week, hasn't there? So there's been the announcement of the title of the new Bond film, which of course is No Time to Die. And there's also been the conscious uncoupling of Spider-Man and Disney, or Marvel, whatever, as well. So that's been the 2, well, I think that's been the sort of 2 biggest kind of movie-related news items this week.
I mean, with regards to the Spider-Man Disney thing, I'm not buying it. I think there's probably, I don't know, they'll reach an agreement. There's too much money on the table.
Sure. Part of me feels like it's been a sort of crude play by Sony to go, do you know what? We'll give them the character for a couple of films, we'll build up enough of a following, and then we'll just take it back because people will come and see the films regardless. But actually, no, I think for all that comic book movies get a bit of a hard time for maybe not being the most sort of, I don't know, movies to make you think or whatever, I think comic book fans are really quite discerning. And when things are shit, they certainly let people know things will just tank. And I think that's a risk that Sony can't afford to take, especially after Venom didn't do so well, even though I did really like that film.
Well, I don't think they will. I think Sony will go their own way because even though the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 were not well received, they still made something like $800,000, $900,000. So they were big movies.
That's not
That's not a lot, John. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It's more than most make. Obviously, they're
$800,000.
sorry, $800 million.
That's what I was thinking. Like, fuck, I think I could make a film that can make $800,000.
Sorry,
Probably
that was hardly the catering bill. Yeah. Oh, my apologies.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so they were not far off of $1 billion
Yeah.
for both of those,
Sure.
and yet they
As
felt
opposed to $1
that
million.
they felt that they didn't do well enough to warrant continuing the way they were going on their own, so they obviously teamed up with Marvel. But apparently there's information that's come out about the deal that they had struck. Part of the deal, Marvel got all the monies from MCU films that Spider-Man was in, and they got 5% of the Spider-Man Sony films. So
Do you
obviously
mean 5 or 50?
5, and they were renegotiating to get 50%. Actually,
Yeah.
they wanted a 50-50 split, basically, because they've basically built up the IP now as well for the whole Spider-Man universe again. Made it more popular than ever, arguably, and they're obviously wanting more cash. Obviously, Disney need the cash. You know,
Sure.
Yeah.
they've spent what $71 billion in Fox, so they're obviously wanting to get a wee bit of money back from that.
Yeah.
So you can understand why they want to hold on to the properties and they want to make them popular. But yeah, you're probably right, Simmy. I think they may get back together at some point, but there'll be a bit of a standoff for a while. But it's interesting that Spider-Man doesn't feature in Phase 4 at all in any of the films.
I would like to see where this goes. You know, Marvel got it really right with Tom Holland. the casting and stuff like that, and the way that Spider-Man was portrayed, I think to sort of take that back now is only going to, it's just going to end in disaster. And I'm quite sure there is going to be a sort of, peacocking competition between Sony and Disney, or Sony and Marvel, whatever you want to call it. But ultimately, Marvel were onto a good thing there. It would be stupid of Sony to try and somehow claw this back for themselves. It's not going to work out.
Yeah, it's basically, there's no way Sony are going to try and remove it for that universe, though. Completely.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bit ballsy in Sony's part.
And they're just going to fuck it up.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the thing.
I think Marvel kind of hold all the cards as well, because if Sony obviously ultimately say, no, you're not getting them, they'll say, well, fair enough, well, we'll just do an X-Men film and we'll do a Fantastic Four film, and see the next time there's a Spider-Man film, our film about 2 weeks before yours.
Embarrass yourself like that in front of all those goddamn people.
I think we've solved the world's rights when it comes to Quentin Tarantino and Sony. People really should hire us as advisors.
Yep, absolutely.
I wouldn't hire John to do my finances, mind you.
Okay, right. So, we're done then?
I think we're done. I'd like
Cool.
to thank everybody for tuning in, downloading this, streaming us, however you get your Movie Scramble fix. You can always contact us at Movie Scramble on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And John, you have a new email address, I believe.
Yes, you can now get in touch with us at podcast@moviescramble.co.uk if you have any thoughts about the podcast or anything that you think we should cover. Just get in touch, please. It would be nice to hear from people and hear your opinions on what we're actually doing.
We also accept dick pics of all shapes and sizes, so
Yeah, direct to Mary, please.
Yeah, I think Mary, you do realise that's going to happen now.
Yeah, it's open season now.
I mean, in fairness, for the 3 people that listen to us, one of whom is me, one of whom is probably my colleague at work. He's not likely to, start texting me pictures of his dick. And if he is, that's fine. It's just going to make the coffee in the morning a little bit weird.
Well, if that's all from you guys, that's all from me. Thanks very much. I enjoyed myself. Peace out.
Bye.
Hey! You're Rick fucking Dalton. Don't you forget it.